Welcome to a deep dive into the world of renewable energy technology in 2024. We're going to really break down what's working and where we're facing challenges and what it all means as we look ahead. And for this deep dive, we're going to be using the UN's Climate Technology Progress Report 2024 as our guide. It's packed with the latest insights from leading experts.
It really is the most up-to-date look at the global renewable sector that we have, and it really doesn't shy away from asking the tough questions.
So let's start with the big picture. You've probably heard about that commitment at COP 28 to triple renewable energy capacity and double the rate of energy efficiency improvements by 2030.
Yeah, it's a bold goal, but honestly, it's absolutely necessary. I mean, the 2023 global stocktake made it very clear we are not on track to meet that 1.5 degrees C target. That's why initiatives like the Technology Implementation Program are so important. The TIP, it's all about giving developing countries the tools and the resources they need to actually make those ambitious goals a reality.
And it seems like things are moving in the right direction. At least that's what the report highlights. There's some pretty impressive growth in installations, especially for solar PV and wind power. Did you know that in 2023 alone, new capacity increased by 50%, reaching almost 510 gigawatts?
Yeah, that's enough to power millions of homes. It's true. But, there is a flip side to this progress. We haven't really seen a significant decrease in fossil fuel demand yet. It's kind of like trying to run up a down escalator.
So even though we're adding all this renewable energy, we're still really reliant on those fossil fuels.
Exactly. And it's a really complex problem. The fossil fuel industry is deeply entrenched. And in 2022 alone, G20 countries spent, get this, $1.4 trillion on fossil fuel subsidies. That's a huge financial incentive to just keep things the way they are, even when you have cleaner options available.
So it sounds like we need more than just wind farms and solar panels to actually break free from fossil fuels.
You're absolutely right. It requires a fundamental shift in how we think about and how we use energy. And it's going to require global cooperation on a scale that we haven't really seen before.
The report also mentions something called the learning by doing effect, which suggests that the more we use certain renewable technologies, the cheaper they become.
It's a fascinating phenomenon, and it has been a major driver in those falling prices we've seen. For things like solar panels, think of it like baking a cake. The first few times you try a new recipe, you might make some mistakes. It might take you longer, but each time you bake that cake, you learn something. You become more efficient. And eventually, you can bake that cake with your eyes closed. And it's the same with renewable technologies. The more we produce, the more we deploy, the more we streamline that process, and the costs come down.
And is this playing out equally across all renewable technologies?
Well, not necessarily. Technologies with smaller modular features, like solar PV, they've seen really dramatic cost reductions. They're easier and faster to manufacture and install, which just allows for much faster learning and scaling. But more complex technologies, like geothermal, for example, which often requires large-scale infrastructure and specialized knowledge, they haven't benefited as much from this effect.
So it sounds like we're making progress, but we really need to be strategic about which technologies we're focusing on. Now let's talk about what are the biggest hurdles for renewable energy. Storage. The sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. So how do we make sure there's a reliable energy supply? When we're dealing with these variable sources?
That's where energy storage comes in. It's like having a giant battery for the grid. It allows us to store that excess energy that's generated during those peak times and then release it when demand is high or when the renewable generation is low. Right now, pumped hydro storage is the dominant player. It accounts for about 90% of the global capacity. It's a proven technology. It uses water reservoirs at different elevations to store and release energy.
But I imagine that has some limitations.
You're right. It requires specific geographical conditions, so it's not a viable option for every region.
And that's where batteries come in,
right?
It feels like every year the batteries in our phones and laptops
are
getting smaller, more powerful, and cheaper.
Absolutely. We're seeing some remarkable advancements in battery technology, and that's having a huge impact on the energy storage sector. The cost of batteries has plummeted in recent years, making them a much more attractive option for that grid-scale storage. There's a lot of research and development happening right now around different types of batteries, from lithium-ion to flow batteries, each with their own advantages and challenges.
It's exciting to think that the technology that powers our everyday devices could also hold the key to unlocking a renewable energy future. But it sounds like there's more to consider than just cost and efficiency.
Yeah, you're picking up on something really crucial. When we talk about batteries, we also need to be thinking about the environmental impacts of their production and their disposal. Mining the materials for those batteries can have significant ecological consequences. We need to make sure that we're not simply shifting the problem from fossil fuels
Right.
to just another form of environmental degradation.
So it's not just about replacing one source of energy with another. It's about thinking holistically about the entire life cycle of these technologies and finding ways to minimize their impact.
Exactly. We need to be asking ourselves tough questions and demanding sustainable practices at every stage of the game. Now, so far we've been mainly talking about electricity generation, but renewable energy is also essential for other sectors, like heating and transportation.
And I imagine those sectors present their own unique challenges.
They do. They really do. Those sectors are often more reliant on those traditional fuels, and changing those ingrained habits can be tough. For example, in many parts of the world, especially regions with limited access to, modern energy services, traditional biomass like wood or charcoal is still a primary source of heat.
So even though it's technically renewable, using biomass can have its own environmental downsides.
Yeah, that's right. We need to be mindful of how biomass is harvested, and used unsustainable practices can lead to deforestation and air pollution. It's about finding that balance and making sure we're using biomass in a way that benefits both people and the planet.
The report suggests that electrification powered by renewable sources could be a key strategy for bringing clean energy to these underserved regions.
Yeah, electrification has incredible potential. Imagine replacing those polluting cook stoves with electric ones, or diesel generators with solar-powered systems. It could dramatically improve health outcomes and quality of life for millions of people.
What about transportation? It feels like electric vehicles are becoming more mainstream, but we're still a long way from electrifying everything, especially heavy-duty vehicles and airplanes.
You've hit on one of the tougher nuts to crack. Electrifying those sectors will require technological breakthroughs, especially in battery capacity and charging infrastructure. Green hydrogen is another exciting option, especially for applications like long-haul trucking and shipping. It's essentially a way to store renewable energy in the form of hydrogen, which can then be used as a clean fuel.
So it sounds like we're still in the early stages of figuring out how to decarbonize these harder-to-reach sectors.
We are, but the important thing is that we're actively exploring solutions and investing in innovation. Now let's talk about the financial side of things, because, you can't power a planet on good intentions alone.
That's for sure. The report spends a good amount of time talking about investment and the cost of these renewable technologies.
And the trends are encouraging. We've seen significant cost reductions in solar and wind power, particularly in China, OECD countries, and some emerging markets. These countries are investing heavily in research development and deployment, creating economies of scale that are driving down prices.
So does that mean we're on track to meet those global renewable energy targets?
Well, not quite. The report also highlights a concerning reality. Many developing countries are struggling to keep pace.
What's holding them back?
One major factor is the cost of capital. Investors in these countries often face higher interest rates and perceived risks, making it more expensive to finance renewable energy projects.
It's almost like a vicious cycle. These countries need renewable energy to develop sustainably, but they need financial resources to make those investments in the first place.
Exactly. It's a complex issue that requires a multifaceted approach. We need more support from development banks and climate finance institutions to help de-risk investments and make them more attractive. And we need policy solutions that address the broader economic and financial challenges in these countries. It's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's about creating an environment where renewable energy investments can thrive.
What about exploring alternative ownership structures? Could community ownership models or energy cooperatives play a role in bridging that gap?
That's a really interesting thought. Empowering local communities to invest in and benefit from renewable energy projects could be a game changer. It fosters a sense of ownership and can help unlock local resources that might otherwise be inaccessible.
It sounds like finding solutions will require creativity and collaboration on a global scale. Now shifting gears a bit, one of the most fascinating aspects of the report is its exploration of digitalization and artificial intelligence in the energy sector. It almost feels futuristic.
It's a rapidly evolving field, and it has the potential to revolutionize how we manage and optimize renewable energy systems. Imagine using AI to analyze weather patterns and energy demand in real time, then adjusting the output of solar and wind farms accordingly, or using machine learning to predict maintenance needs and prevent outages before they happen.
It sounds incredibly complex, but also incredibly efficient.
Exactly. And it's not just about making things run more smoothly. Digitalization can also empower individuals to play a more active role in the energy transition.
I'm thinking of things like smart meters that allow you to track your energy consumption or apps that connect you with renewable energy providers.
You're spot on. These tools can help you make more informed choices about your energy use and even allow you to participate in things like demand response programs where you can get paid for reducing your energy consumption during peak times.
It's like gamifying energy conservation.
In a way, it's about making sustainability engaging and accessible. One example that comes to mind is Google's project Sunroof. They're using AI to analyze satellite imagery and assess the solar potential of rooftops.
So you can literally see how much solar energy you could generate on your own home.
Exactly. And it's not just for homeowners. This information can be incredibly valuable for policymakers and urban planners as they look to integrate solar energy into their communities. But of course, with any powerful technology, there are potential downsides to consider.
I imagine data privacy is a big one. With all this information being collected and analyzed, how do we ensure that it's used responsibly?
That's a crucial question.
Oh.
We need strong safeguards to prevent misuse of data and ensure that individuals have control over their own information. And then there's the issue of algorithmic bias.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that these AI systems are designed and trained in a way that avoids perpetuating existing inequalities.
It sounds like striking that balance between innovation and ethical considerations is going to be a major challenge going forward.
It will be, but the potential benefits are enormous.
It really feels like we're on the cusp of this major energy revolution. But it's also clear that there are a lot of complex challenges to kind of figure out. What does this all mean for someone like me? Someone who wants to understand this shift and maybe even be a part of it.
It means you're already ahead of the curve. Just by being curious and engaging with these ideas, you're contributing to the conversation.
But beyond staying informed, what can I actually do to make a difference?
Well, think of it this way. The energy landscape is constantly evolving, and every decision we make, as individuals and as a society, it shapes the direction of that evolution.
So it's about more than just switching to LED light bulbs or recycling.
Those things are important, but it's also about taking a more active role, supporting businesses and politicians who prioritize renewable energy, advocating for policies that promote clean technologies, and making informed choices about where you get your energy from and how you use it. All of these things, they can have a ripple effect.
It sounds like being a conscious consumer is more important than ever.
It is. And don't underestimate the power of conversation. Talking to your friends and family about these issues, sharing what you've learned, and encouraging them to think about their own energy choices. It can be surprisingly impactful.
It's about creating a culture of awareness and action.
Exactly. And remember, this isn't just about doing the right thing. It's about creating a future that's better for all of us. A future that's powered by clean, sustainable energy. A future that's more resilient to climate change.
A future worth fighting for.
Absolutely. It's a future that we can build together.
Now, before we wrap up, there was one thing I found really intriguing in the report. It briefly touched on the potential of blockchain technology in the energy sector.
Yeah, that's a really interesting area, and one that's still very much in its infancy, but the possibilities are fascinating.
Imagine a world where you could buy and sell renewable energy directly from your neighbors using a secure, decentralized platform powered by blockchain.
It could completely transform how we think about energy distribution and empower individuals to become producers as well as consumers.
It almost sounds like creating a microgrid for your community.
In a way, it is. It's about democratizing access to clean energy and giving people more control over their own energy choices.
It's definitely something I'm going to be keeping an eye on.
It's an exciting space to watch.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the latest advancements in renewable energy technology. We discussed the challenges and opportunities, and we even peeked into the future.
And hopefully, you've gained some valuable insights and inspiration along the way.
I know I have. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the world of renewable energy. I hope you feel as energized and hopeful as I do about the possibilities that lie ahead.
Remember, the future of energy is in our hands.
So until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.